What if I told you that the blueprint for our world was actually written over 2,000 years ago? Well, today we're going to dive into the absolutely epic rise and, of course, the spectacular collapse of the Roman Empire. It's an incredible story, really, about how this tiny little city-state somehow managed to build a world and then just watch it all fall apart.
Yeah, how does that even happen? It's a question that has obsessed historians, well, forever. And let me tell you, this is not just a story about swords and sandals. No, no. It's this grand saga of unbelievable ambition, brutal betrayal, and game-changing innovation that literally shaped the world we live in today. And the craziest part? It all kicked off in the most unlikely place imaginable. All right, so where do we even begin with a story this huge? Well, it doesn't start with some massive superpower, not at all. It starts with a myth. I mean, Rome's whole origin story is just dripping with legend, followed by a long line of kings. But then, it was forged in the fire of a revolution that would change, well, everything.
Okay, let's put some dates on this. It all supposedly kicks off with the mythical founding by Romulus way back in 753 BC. And for a few centuries, Rome is ruled by a series of kings. But then, around 509 BC, the Roman people just had enough. They got fed up, they kicked out their monarch, and they created something totally radical for the time, a republic. This idea of a government for the people. But here's the catch. This brand new, fragile republic, it was born surrounded by enemies. And honestly, this is so crucial to understanding what made Rome, well, Rome. Its entire early history was just one long, brutal fight for survival. And all that constant warfare, it forged a society that was incredibly tough, super disciplined, and just ruthlessly efficient. They didn't just learn how to fight, they basically perfected it. And pretty soon, just surviving wasn't going to cut it anymore. Oh no, they were ready to conquer.
So once they finally secured their own backyard, the Italian peninsula, Rome started to look outward. But there was a problem, a big one. If they wanted to dominate the Mediterranean, they had to go head-to-head with one major rival, another empire that was just as ambitious and just as powerful as they were. And that rival? It was Carthage. I mean, this was the heavyweight championship of the ancient world, no question. You had Rome with its unstoppable land army, its legions, but then you had Carthage, this huge trading empire that absolutely ruled the waves with its dominant navy. The thing is, both of them wanted total control. There just wasn't enough room in the Mediterranean for the two of them. And this epic showdown led to a series of conflicts we now call the Punic Wars, and they were unbelievably devastating.
Just look at this number, 700. Let that sink in. In just the First Punic War, Rome and Carthage together lost around 700 major warships. That is a scale of destruction it's almost impossible to imagine in the ancient world. This was total war.
And in the end, Rome won. They didn't just win, they utterly destroyed Carthage and became the undisputed superpower of the Mediterranean. But, and this is a huge but, that victory was like a poison pill. See, unimaginable wealth started flooding into Rome, and with it came massive inequality and crazy levels of corruption. The old system, the Republic, it couldn't handle the strain. So how is this for irony? The very victory that forged their empire was the exact same thing that ended up destroying their Republic. So the Republic is basically on its deathbed now, right? It's just convulsing in one brutal civil war after another. You have these powerful generals with armies loyal only to them fighting each other for ultimate power. And out of all that chaos, one man was about to rise above everyone else and deliver the final killing blow to the old republic. Of course, that man was Julius Caesar. And this quote right here, Alea iacta est, the die is cast. This is it. This is the moment the republic effectively died. When he led his army across the Rubicon River, he was marching on Rome itself. This was a flat-out act of treason, and there was absolutely no turning back. And yep, this is exactly where we get that phrase, crossing the Rubicon. We still use it today, right? To talk about a point of no return. For Caesar, that's exactly what it was. It was an all-or-nothing gamble for total, absolute control of the Roman world.
So, Caesar gets assassinated, right? And that just kicks off another round of bloody civil war. But out of the ashes, his adopted son, a guy named Octavian, comes out on top. He rebrands himself as Augustus, and in a move of pure political genius, he keeps all the old trappings of the Republic, but secretly holds all the power for himself. He becomes Rome's very first emperor,
And with that, he kicks off an era of peace and stability the world had literally never seen before. And this period became known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. For 200 years, the empire was just humming. You can see it here. Internal stability, way up. Economic prosperity, soaring. And those major civil wars, almost none. Trade was booming, things were getting built. This was Rome at its absolute, unquestioned peak. But as we all know, no golden age lasts forever. And with that, we have to enter the final act of our story. Now, it's really important to get this. The fall of Rome wasn't a single event. It's not like a building that just collapsed one day. Nope. It was a long, slow, grinding process of decay, a decline that took centuries to unfold. So, you gotta ask, how did it all go so wrong? I mean, historians have been debating this for literally centuries, and the real answer is, there is no one simple answer. It wasn't one single thing that brought Rome to its knees. It was everything, all at once. A total perfect storm of crises, where each problem just made all the other problems even worse. The best way to think about it is like a set of dominoes, right? Each one tipping over the next. So, first you've got political instability. The politics became a total circus. I mean, at one point, Rome burned through more than 20 emperors in just 50 years. 20! Then knock over the next domino. The economy completely collapses with insane hyperinflation. Then another one. The empire just got too big. It overexpanded and its military was stretched way too thin to defend all those borders. And on top of all that, you get devastating plagues that wipe out huge chunks of the population. And the final domino? Constant, relentless invasions from so-called barbarian tribes. It was just an unstoppable cascade of failure. And the traditional end date for all of this is 476 AD. That's the year the last Roman emperor in the West was kicked off the throne. Not to be honest, the empire was already pretty much a hollow shell by then, but that date, that's what we mark as the official symbolic end of an absolutely incredible era. So the Western Roman Empire was gone, but its ghost has been haunting the world ever since. I mean it. Its legacy is so completely baked into our modern civilization that most of the time we don't even see it. But okay, let's be real. An empire collapsed over 1,500 years ago? So what? Why should you or I care about that today? Well, the reason is simple. If you want to understand ourselves and the world we live in right now, you absolutely have to understand Rome. I mean, just think about it. The very idea of a republic, of a senate, that's Roman. The languages spoken by hundreds of millions of people, French, Spanish, Italian, they're basically just modern Latin. Their incredible engineering, the roads, the aqueducts, a lot of it is still standing. Even our calendar, July for Julius Caesar, August for Augustus, is a direct leftover. In so many ways, we are literally still living in the world that Rome built. And that really brings us to the final big question, doesn't it? This whole story. A republic that buckles under the weight of its own success. An empire that gets so big it just breaks apart. The idea that internal fighting is more deadly than any outside enemy, is that just the story of Rome? Or is it a timeless warning, a blueprint for what happens to great powers, a pattern that just keeps repeating itself over and over again throughout history?